Hello, my fellow movie fans, and welcome to another show of Feast of Films Theatre, today starring Matthew Black and Ethan R. Hill. There, that's the intro.
Oh, yeah. Classic. Classic. Hello, my fellow movie fans. Welcome to another episode of A Feast of Films. This is episode 5, and it's a special episode. We're going to be talking about Star Wars Episode 1, all episode long, and we are so excited to talk about it. I'm Matt Black, and with me, as always, is...
Ethan R. Hill, hello there.
Hello, Ethan R. Hillnoby. That was terrible. I'm sorry. It's not a good nickname. We're not gonna go with it. We'll just keep it normal. We'll just keep it.
I'm trying to think of a way to say General Grievous, but have your name in it, and it just doesn't. General Matt Grievous, General
McGrievous. McGrievous is General McGrievous.
Are you a Braveheart character now?
I am a very drunk one. That's what the slur's going on there. Couldn't quite get it together quick enough. Anyway, we're really excited about Star Wars Episode 1. We just rewatched it again recently to prepare for the episode, and I'm excited to talk about it. You pumped, man?
Oh yeah. Did you feel as though watching it was torture, or did you actually enjoy yourself? That's the first question.
Honestly, I ultimately enjoyed myself. I actually enjoyed watching this movie, and that's kind of a funny thing to say because I don't always look at it very highly, I guess, when it comes to Star Wars. But no, I actually had quite an enjoyable time watching it, and I definitely picked up on some things that I'd missed previously. So I'm really excited to talk about those things. So I guess we're gonna get right into it here. We're not gonna waste too much time because we have a lot to talk about. Let's go on to question of the day brought to us by Ethan R. Hill, and the letter W. The W is for another episode. That's for another episode. Feast of Films. That's for another episode.
There we go. We said it. We said our tagline. We know we're going to have a good episode now. Anyway, so my question of the day. If you could replace any character in episode 1 with Jeff Goldblum, who would it be?
That was not what I was expecting for a question of the day. I love it. Any character, so more or less any actor, right?
Any role that is in this movie can now be played by Jeff Goldblum.
By Jeff Goldblum.
Who would it be, and why would they do that? What would they bring to this role, being Jeff Goldblum?
It would have to. I would switch out Jar Jar Binks with Jeff Goldblum. I'd get Jeff Goldblum to play Jar Jar Binks for sure. I think that would be the funniest, most different twist on this character that you could possibly get.
Now, would he be doing the voice, or would he just be Jeff Goldblum?
No, he would be Jeff Goldblum as Jar Jar Binks. And you know what? It wouldn't even be CGI. It would just be Jeff Goldblum with Jar Jar ears, walking around doing things.
And do all the Gungans also look like that now? They all look like variations of Jeff Goldblum? Yeah, they do.
Just variations of Jeff Goldblum, and it would be amazing. And they'd walk around being like, skit da ba 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 doo ba ba. And be very thoughtful and talk in that way that he always likes to talk. How he talks with his hands. It would be like...
Now, does he lose the accent too? Like there's all the... He doesn't say Misa and Yusa.
So the accent is gone, but the script is exactly the same. So he'd still be like, Misa, it'd be Misa, Jar Jar Binks. It would be like the same lines, but Jeff Goldblum, and it would be amazing.
I'm actually on board with that.
I would be super hilarious. It would be super funny, especially like a Jeff Goldblum like boss and ass character or whatever.
It's just Jeff Goldblum. Just Jeff Goldblum talking to Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah, it would be amazing, and it would be. It would be. So that's my hands down pick, absolutely, for the question of the day. Jeff Goldblum would take over Jar Jar and the Gungans, and it would be Jeff Goldblum with Gungan ears, but all the lines would be exactly the same, and it would be magic. Can someone please make a video of that? Can someone please just do it? Because I would actually pay money to see it. What about you? Where's Jeff Goldblum fit in your episode 1?
See, mine's in a toss-up because, like, there's a part of me that it would be hilarious if he replaced Jake Lloyd, but that's just because, like, it would be Jeff Goldblum playing a nine-year-old kid. But like, I think my actual answer though is,
are you an angel?
Exactly. Like that would be hilarious and kind of weird, but like still fun. But I think my actual answer, and I think it actually wouldn't hurt the movie in the long run or change it too drastically, is have Jeff Goldblum be the voice of all the battle droids.
Oh, okay.
Or
yeah.
even be like the voice of like the pit droids, like actually give pit droids like a voice, and it's just Jeff Goldblum, just like. I think that would enhance the film, if anything. It would just make it that much better.
It would bring a certain class to it, that's for sure.
Exactly. I think Jeff Goldblum could fit in well in the Star Wars universe as a droid, and I think he would add many good, strong layers to the story. I think
that's a good pick too. Yeah.
I'm more on board with yours. I think the Jar Jar thing, where they're just like they're all Goldblum, just makes
the Gungans of Goldblums.
Better yet, here's
the Gunblooms. The Gunblooms? I don't know how you'd put that together.
Here's the real answer, Matt. Is we take your idea,
Jeff Goldblum,
and we take your idea and we take my idea, and they both happen. So in that final confrontation in Act 3, it's Jeff Goldblum versus Jeff Goldblum. And this epic fight for the planet of Naboo that's just being overrun by Goldblums.
Like,
I think
from an audio level, that would be incredibly interesting. Like
one of the most confusing battles in the world, but so worth it.
What is going on? But it's so satisfying.
I hate this and I love this at the same time.
Oh man, I love Jeff Goldblum. Great question of the day. Great question of the day. That was hilarious.
Figured
man.
Shake things up.
I loved it. Dude, I was expecting, I'm glad we didn't go super introspective with this one, but I was expecting something totally different, like maybe something that required deeper thought. But like the Jeff Goldblum thing, man, I love it. I love it. That was
cut you a break, and also, if we have so much to go on with episode 1, do we really need to spend a lot of time with the question of the day today?
Yeah, exactly, man. Just something quick, short, to the point. Okay, guys, now we pass the question of the day to all of you. Which character would you replace with Jeff Goldblum in Star Wars Episode 1? Let us know down in the comment section below. All right, guys, let's move on to Act number 1. So we're going to be talking about the good, the bad, the weird, just our couple thoughts. And Act 1 starts at, obviously, the beginning of the movie and ends as they kind of arrive and end up on Tatooine. So that's kind of the section we're going to be talking about right now. Just a couple notes and thoughts on the movie. It's not going to be a play-by-play of each and every scene. Well, now this happens, and now this happens, and then this thing happened over there, and that was interesting. It's just going to be our notes kind of regarding this section of the film. So do you want me to start it off here, Ethan, or do you want to...
Yeah, man, go for it. I think your points start a little earlier than mine. So, like, yeah.
All right, sounds good.
Let's go over this with you. How are you feeling about Act 1, Matt?
Number 1, Act 1, it was all right. I'll give my general thoughts on Act 1 first. It was all right. It set the stage for the rest of the movie. Nothing overly interesting happened here. Pacing was a little slow through Act 1 just to kind of get going, but not terrible. Yeah, it really did its job, right? Introduced us to the characters, the villains. It introduced us to the plot and the overall story, the conflict that was going to be going on through the movie. So I think it did its job well, as Act 1 is supposed to do. My first note here is, honestly, this is not even just for Episode 1. This is all of Star Wars. But that, Star Wars crawl magic. Like, that moment where you see, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and, Star Wars comes on the screen and it goes back and it gives that scroll. Isn't that moment magical?
Well, that's why
I love it.
To me, there are 2 rules with Star Wars, and I probably have said this before, but I'll say it again. I'll probably say it in every Star Wars video. There are 2 rules that make a Star Wars film a Star Wars film, and that is 1, that opening crawl. That needs to happen. And 2, it has to start in space. Those are the two things that need to happen in order for you to get Star Wars. Even if it's like starts in space and pans down to the planet and you just go there, that's cool. But you gotta start in space. You gotta have the first moments in space, because that's the whole tone, is you are in space. You're in the stars. That's it. And like that crawl is so pivotal that when it was absent from movies, it just kind of felt, you could feel it. When it was absent from like the spin-off movies, you could feel something wasn't there. Arguably, it's weird because The Mandalorian doesn't need it, but maybe that's because it's a TV show, not a movie.
Well, I think we even talked about this on another episode again, like you were mentioning. But Mandalorian, because it's like an episodic thing, maybe it would just be a little bit too much every episode.
Yeah.
Especially when they're only like a half hour long. Like every half hour you're getting a new crawl. Like that'd be a bit much. You saw that now you're watching the Clone Wars, like you see how it starts.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it is a very like crawl-esque, like something like that would also work. And I would be okay with that as well.
But like it has such a strong feeling. Like it elicits such a strong feeling from you when you see that. And you can feel it in your chest basically, even when I threw it on. When I threw on episode 1 and credits came up and just like the music started playing, I could feel it here, and I was just like, yeah. And I was really feeling it this time. Not every time that I watch Star Wars, especially like at home. Like in the theaters is one thing. You feel it every time in the theaters. Like when it's so dark and the word Star Wars and the scrolls going and it's so big and the music is all around you, thunderous. Then you really feel it. And at home, I don't always feel it, but this time, I don't know, there's just something about this watching that was like, it almost felt like I was watching it for the first time again. And it was magical, man. I loved it. And I can't wait to just have, Max and be able to take Max to the theater for the first time and be able to experience that moment as well. That's also something I'm worried about too. And I just want to touch on this quickly and kind of get your thoughts on it as well. Now, I know Disney, when they're working on the trilogy there, I don't know what's going to happen going forward. But like as you said, the main movies, the main episodic movies had the scroll. The spin-off movies did not. And that was kind of Disney's plan. They're like, we're going to keep the scroll for the episodic movies here, and the side ones aren't going to have that Star Wars scroll, which I thought was a mistake. That's the dumbest thing. No, I agree.
The Star Wars scroll is like the anthem at a sports game. It just gets you pumped. You gotta have it. Have it.
It sets it up too, so you don't need to have... So the thing I love about the Star Wars scroll is that it sets up the world in a way that you don't need to have the characters suddenly expositioning a bunch of storyline of where they're at. You can start the story, where any of them did. Where you can start it where it's like episode 4. Ah, man, this is what's going on. And then the first thing you see is just ships flying overhead shooting at each other.
Yeah.
We didn't need to set that up. Same thing with... I mean, literally, you can name any kind of Star Wars plot, and they all start kind of, not necessarily in the middle of action, but in the middle of that journey. Like, for episode 1, to bring it back to episode 1, we didn't need to have a scene explaining what Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan were doing. We didn't need to have them showed at the Senate being like, hey, yeah, you're going to go and negotiate and stuff like that. There was nothing like that. It was just like, so here's where they're at. This is what they're going to do. Here's the characters. Enjoy.
Let's go.
And it works. It works really effectively.
And that's my concern, because not only is it magic, but like you said, it has a practical effect to it. Now, what do you think Disney's going to do going forward? Because now the numbered saga movies are done. So we don't exactly know what their plan is for the next group of movies. Like, we know Taika Waititi's making a movie. We know Kevin Feige is going to be producing a movie. Whether that's the one with Taika Waititi is still uncertain. I don't think it is. There's a couple other, they have plans for movies coming out, but they're not necessarily going to be episodic movies, right? Like, it's not going to obviously be before or after, episode 9. I'd imagine they're going to go back and maybe fill in some holes places. But I think they should have the Star Wars scrolls still. I think they should bring it back for every movie. What's your thoughts on that?
Do you want to know what I think they're gonna do, or what I would like them to do? Because
I want to know both, because I think they're not gonna use it, to be honest, but I think they should.
My answer is such a cop-out for the first part. It's genuinely, I don't know if they're going to or not. I can't. They've caught me off guard with some decisions they've made in the past, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
And there's things where it's like, sometimes their decisions are good, sometimes they're bad, and I don't know. Like, this is one where I don't know what they're going to do. I could see them doing both, and I don't know. But the answer is, I think as long as they're using it as a narrative tool, 100% it should be there. Like, I don't need it to recap previous events of previous episodes. Like, I didn't need the one from episode 2 to recap what happens in episode 1. I just need them to say, hey, this is what's going on for this movie. So as long as they use it as a proper narrative structure and basically an introduction to the story that you're going to tell, I'm good with it, and I want them to keep it going, because I think it's, when it comes to Star Wars, it's really the only series that's been really effective with that. There are other fantasy series and other sci-fi series that have done the same thing. Actually, even Power Rangers the movie from like the 90s opens up with a scroll and a narration, right? And it doesn't have the same effect. So if you have this very uniquely recognizable tool and thing, you should use it. 100% you should use it. And also, I've had people say, well, they don't need to use it, or it doesn't make sense because there's not going to be the episode numbers. There weren't the episode numbers in the original releases. There weren't even the titles. It was just like Star Wars, and then there's the scroll. Like, there wasn't, like...
Yeah, exactly.
Episode numbers came in a lot later. Titles, like A New Hope and Empire, and like, A New Hope came in a lot later. I think Empire was the name of the movie right away. But the first Star Wars was just Star Wars. It wasn't Star Wars A New Hope. That is very... Well... recent as in like the last 30 to 40 years, but like it's still a
yeah, exactly. Fair enough.
It's still a new thing.
It wasn't at launch.
Yeah, and that's, to me, as long as you just have Star Wars, the title of the film, and the scroll, I could care less. I feel like we keep saying scroll, not scroll, and it bugs me because I hear myself saying it. I'm like, that's wrong, but I don't know. I guess you could say both work.
You could probably say either way.
But to me,
I guess at the end of the day,
to answer the question, long story short, I think honestly, the it needs to be there. That's just me, and that's just a fanboy's opinion. I'll admit that, but I have a hard time accepting and resonating with a Star Wars film when that's missing.
I agree. No, I agree with you. I absolutely think they should. I don't think they will. And it's just because they already mentioned, like, we want to keep it for episodic things or, like, the big movies. It's like, okay, like, fine, man. But you got, like, it's just, it works well as a narrative tool. And again, it's like I said, an anthem at a sports game. Like, it gets you hyped. It's something that's always there. When you're watching Star Wars, it's like, it's your introduction into the universe, right? It's your welcome to Star Wars. And it gets you excited to see what's coming. It brings you into the world, gets you up to date, and... It's something that's really magical, and it has a lot of emotional resonance to it. So why you wouldn't use that is like beyond me, but I don't think they will. But again, I think they just really, really should, because it's something they used in not only the movies, like before Disney took over, but in the video games.
Oh yeah,
video games had it, right? So it's like, it's not like it has to be for one thing or another. Like, just use it. It's the welcome to the Star Wars universe.
And banner. it's once again, it's so uniquely Star Wars that other things...
Nothing else, no one else does it. No one else does it.
However, it wasn't originated by Star Wars, but that's a whole side thing. Like, George Lucas lifted that from Flash Gordon, I think it was.
Yeah, it was Flash Gordon, yeah.
But regardless, it's become so synonymous with Star Wars that other things that have parodied Star Wars use that crawl. That's why we're saying it like that.
Because it's a crawl.
It's a crawl.
Yeah.
That's it.
Not a scroll.
That makes so much more sense. So anyway, that's like Spaceballs uses that crawl. Even the episode of Community where they switch over from Western to Star Wars, they use a crawl. Like, I think we've done things where we've parodied it before in previous works where there's a crawl. Like, that's...
Yeah.
It's, again...
Well, it's iconic to the brand. Like, that'd be like Disney being like, yeah, we don't really feel like using Mickey Mouse in our stuff. Or, like, the castle, where, you know, like the little... I don't know, what's that little... Is it Tinkerbell or something? It's got the little arc that goes over it. Whatever.
I think that's supposed to be Tinkerbell, but I could be very wrong.
Or fireworks. I can't remember. Regardless, that'd be like Disney like not using its main branding. Right?
Regardless,
and the
it's
crawl
magical.
Is Star Wars branding. Yeah,
it's magical and it needs to be there because movies are magic and they are important, and that's just a whole other side tangent. But like, stop shying away from the magic. Use your tools, and that's kind of my big thing.
Good point. Nice. So that falls under my good. Act 1, right at the beginning of the movie.
That's it.
You have to have the Star Wars crawl, and it's in there because obviously why wouldn't it be at this point? And it's magic. I love it. This one goes under the weird category. Is the pilot a child? Like that? Like this pilot? I can't get it out of my head. I feel like the pilot is a child.
No, the pilot.
I'm not exactly sure.
Like in their ship?
Yes.
No, she's just a lady. She's just
a lady?
She's just a lady.
Maybe it's the haircut, man. I've always been so confused because I'm like, I feel like this pilot is a child. Like, not like an 8-year-old, but like maybe 14. You know what I mean? Like, not very old.
No, she's just a lady with a short haircut. And it's funny because I guarantee you, if we would have talked about this maybe 10 to 15 years ago, I could probably have named exactly who she was, what her name was, everything like that, and explained it.
Oh, probably, yeah.
But no, I'm far past that point, which saddens me a little bit when I think about that, where it's like, man, I used to have like too much Star Wars knowledge, but I'm also okay with that because now I've like expanded that knowledge to other things. But no, she's not a child. She is a lady, and she is a captain, and that's all I know. And she's dead. That's basically.
And she dies. Yeah. They are the first casualties.
Shields up.
Star Wars. Yeah. No doubt. Let's see here. The Naboo situation itself, I always felt was kind of. It's very different, right? And I can see why people were not really hyped about it when this movie came out, because you look at the original trilogy and like all the themes and everything it kind of dealt with. The little rebels versus the big empire. Then all of a sudden you get to episode 1. It's like, there's a trade dispute between these guys. And they're like, what? What is this trade dispute? But I think, the Naboo situation, ultimately, when you look at it, you already see right at the beginning of the movie, it kind of sets the stage for the whole trilogy going forward and the whole saga kind of in itself. Like, you have Palpatine playing both sides. Like,
oh yeah,
right off the bat, you're introduced to that idea. Because not only is he, commanding over the Trade Federation, but he's also talking and dealing with the people, on the Naboo level. Like, he's their senator, right? So I always felt like this Naboo, this whole situation for Palpatine is almost a test run for the Clone Wars. How well can I navigate and control both sides to get what I ultimately want?
One of the things I love about that, where they have Palpatine and Sidious, like, they're set up as two different characters, but, like, even at 8 years old, you knew they're the same character.
Yeah.
But they kept treating it like this big twist. Like, even by the time we get to episode 3, they're like, oh. I mean, like, we know you guys know, but isn't it crazy that Palpatine and Sidious are the same person?
Yeah.
Whoa! And it's like, okay, yeah, sure, okay. But like
it's for other people who are less observant.
It's such a weird story plot device, but it's so uniquely Star Wars that it works. It works because we know who the Emperor is. We know it's Emperor Palpatine. We knew that growing up. And then, like, Senator Palpatine. Oh, okay. All right.
That must be the same guy.
And then Darth Sidious. Okay, I guess he's using a different name that he doesn't use.
See, and that's what
later on.
That's what confused. Like, I remember being 8 or whatever and being confused by that and like what's going on there, because I was like, well, maybe we're early enough back that this is a different character. I'm like, he looks like the Emperor, he looks like Palpatine, but
he talks like
Sidious.
him.
I'm not really sure exactly. Of course, he didn't look all old and scarred and all the the classic Palpatine look. So there was a little bit of doubt there, right? So I kind of get what they were going with that, but yeah, I thought it was just, what do you? I thought it was, just it was an interesting situation for sure that they set up in this film.
No, and I like it, and honestly, I think as I've gotten older, I kind of enjoy the politics angle a bit more. Like, as a kid, it went over my head, and then as a teenager, I'm like, this is stupid. Where's my lightsaber fights? And then now, like, as I've gotten older, I'm like, okay, I get it. I can kind of see what he was going for now. This makes sense. But it was just, it could have been handled a bit better, I think. But at the same time, honestly, for a 2-hour film, it was handled pretty well. It was handled overall.
What more do you need, right? You need a conflict and stuff. And ultimately, like, I'll talk about a little bit later once we get into, like, the deeper, character arcs and moments and a bit more thematics of the film. But even for Palpatine, like I said, it was just a situation. Like, everything in this whole trilogy is pretty much a big ass scam run by Palpatine. Like, everything that happens is orchestrated and put together by him. So I don't know. I felt like, because this situation, like Naboo, happens 10 years before Episode 2. I believe there's a 10 years gap.
Yes.
And so it is almost like, I feel like it is almost like that test run for him as far as controlling both sides. Because obviously he has the idea of the Clone Wars and what's going to be happening. Like, it's part of his plan. This is almost like a test run, like, for control, as far as controlling both sides and seeing if he can manipulate the galaxy into doing what he wants it to do.
It's a mix of a test run, but also planting the seeds of getting him into power. Because specifically,
it did get him into power, and that's what he needed it to do. Yeah.
What planet did he specifically put this attack against?
His own,
exactly. So now he's like, man, my planet's being attacked, and no one's going to do anything. I should really try and get so and so, Miss Padme over here, to say, hey, I don't trust the current government. We need to have an overhaul of the government. Well, who can you trust more than the person who essentially their planet's getting attacked, right? Like,
that was the whole plan. Like I said, this whole trilogy is one big ploy by Palpatine. So, yeah, it's interesting. I feel like, like you point out, it's a test run, like, on one element, but on the other side of it, like, it was key for him to obtaining power. He needed it to get to where he wanted to go. But, yeah, real interesting. The Gungans are something, eh?
I mean, I don't hate them. Is that part of your good, your bad, or your weird?
They're part of my definitely, like, I guess, bad. I don't really like the Gungans. They're something. I don't really have, like, a word for them. I just feel like they're just, maybe it's a weird. It's probably under the weird.
I personally, I like the concept of having its own race and society on the planet that doesn't actually interact with the regular. I guess I can't say regular because, like, it depends on your perspective. If you're a Gungan, that's
your regular, yeah.
But if you're,
but the humans,
you have the humans and you have the Gungans, and they are on the same planet and they don't interact with each other. And I like that concept that they only come together when both of their lifestyles are threatened. And I like that because there's a bit of unity, and that ties in with the very end. However, the execution probably could have been a bit better, maybe. It's really weird. It gets weird. The way they talk.
Like, it's just, for me, it's more their characterization, right? It's not necessarily the idea of their species, but it's just how they brought it into, like, a practical form, the characterization of it, just how they speak. How they speak, how they move. Like, I like how they're an underwater species, but it's like they just seem, but they also just something, like, there's something else.
It's kind of weird that final battle wasn't in a swamp or something, where, like, they would arguably have a strength over their enemy, but instead it's like, man, these are aquatic dwelling beings. I guess let's have their final battle in a prairie where they do just as well. Like, that didn't make too much sense to me. Like, as a kid, I didn't care. It was just like, ooh, cool, things are fighting droids, yeah, awesome. But, like, looking back at it, like, it's one of those things if you could have really used those elements to, like, really, I mean, I guess, but thematically, to counter my own point there, thematically speaking, that battle starts with them emerging from the swamps, and the Gungans have been a very guarded and private people who don't really come out of their surroundings. And so they are, in order to fight and defend the Nabooians, I think that's how you pronounce it. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, they just say like the Naboo. I
Sure.
think of the film.
But they come out of hiding, and
Naboo.
they come out of their home, and they put themselves in a place that is directly dangerous to them. So thematically speaking, with the journey of the Gungans, that's actually good imagery and kind of nice. That completely counters my own point, but like...
Just having a debate with himself. But then...
Welcome to my life. This is it. This is like...
like, just everything, hey?
But what about this? Oh, but this also works really well, but that's dumb. So this is a better idea, but I like this over here, and it's...
Yeah.
But I think it's one of those things of execution of just, like, characteristics and stuff maybe could have been a bit better when it comes to just how they act. But
that's ultimately it for me at the end of the day. Like, I think their thematics were great. I thought the idea of them were good. Is just their characterizations. I'm like, man, this just doesn't really... it almost doesn't really fit. Like, they get played off as a really kind of a dumb species at the end of the day. Not that they are, because clearly they have army, clearly they have technology, and they live underwater in like these huge, vast underwater cities. So clearly they're not idiots.
Yeah.
But then they speak and they're kind of played off as like, we're just
look at these
dumb
goofballs.
people.
They're just,
Yeah, exactly. So I thought the characterization of them could have been better. One of the good things that Arc 1 did, they definitely had a great way to introduce us into Qui-Gon's personality versus Obi-Wan's. They did a really good job setting that up right from when we're introduced to the characters, and they're talking on the ship. So you get this relationship clearly between master and apprentice, right? One who's the learner, one who's the teacher.
They're such distinct characters too, because like Obi-Wan is near the end of his journey as a Padawan, and you can see that where he starts having his own opinion. But out of the two of them too, they do have a dry sense of humor, but it's both very, very different, right? Like
and they are, and they set it up great in that first act, and it does pay off later in the movie. You really see the differences of their viewpoints and how they think and how they kind of live in the world. And that's no different to any other mentor and student or parent and child, right? We work together, we live together, but we each are our individual people at the end of the day. And I think they showed it great in the ship. That was a great example of back and forth a little bit, but also just how Qui-Gon, when it comes to even like Jar Jar Binks and the Gungans, how he treats other creatures, right? Obi-Wan, like Qui-Gon, number one, saves Jar Jar. Yeah. He didn't have to, but he's like, okay, I'll tackle you down. He could have just like force pushed him away and just kept booking it. You know what I mean? Like, but he like tackles him, saves him, and then, continues on. And Obi-Wan, on the other hand, this character, he's like, we have a mission to do. Like, we have things to do. We can't be messing around. Like, they get the ship. Like, Boss Nass gives them the ship down in the, Gungan city, right? Obi-Wan's ready to go. Qui-Gon turns around and he helps Jar Jar out. You know what I mean? Like, he saves Jar Jar again. And Obi-Wan's like, Master, we don't have time. Like, we got to get going. But you can see that Qui-Gon, as a Jedi, truly has a care and a love for not just other human beings or other, people, but for any of these, species. He believes he's a true embodiment, really, of a guardian of peace and justice, not just for exclusive people or for one people, but for all. And Obi-Wan's a little bit more mission orientated, really, at this point, and they kind of set that up as well.
But it's funny because, like, he has that love he has that love for other creatures, but he still has that line of like, to Jar Jar specifically, it's like the ability to speak does not make you intelligent or something along those lines. And it's like,
yeah.
Holy crap, Qui-Gon, that's kind of mean. Oh no. And then,
but he still looks out for him, right? Like
one of my favorite moments. One of my favorite moments is when they're both essentially strong arming Jar Jar into taking them to the Gungans. And like one of my favorite lines is Obi-Wan's whole thing where it's like, do you hear those noises? And like, where they're all like, do you hear those noises? There's like 100 more of those things coming. And just like that blast us into oblivion line has been and always will be one of my favorite lines in all of Star Wars, because it's just so extreme and like unnecessary. but it needed to happen.
But it gets the point across, yeah.
Blast us into oblivion. User point is well made. And then it's just like, it's just good.
Let's go.
It's just fun. It's just fun stuff, man.
But yeah, I thought they did a great job of setting up the Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan's different type of personalities, how they work together, but also how they have different, clearly, viewpoints of what they're going for. So I thought that was a good thing. Bad thing, there's always a bigger fish. Why was there always a bigger fish twice? Like, we didn't need to have it twice, did we? Once was probably good enough. Like, so they're getting chased by one fish. Okay, some eats it. Cool. Oh, we're getting chased by another fish. Oh, another
and
one.
And it's the same one.
Cool.
It's the same.
That's what I was gonna say. I'm like, isn't that exactly the same fish that ate the other smaller one? Is it just like following
Still
them?
Hungry, man.
I don't know. It's gotta eat. There's always a bigger fish. I thought that was kind of a not great scene. But yeah, then after that, I thought the rest of the arc was solid. The rest of the act was solid, I guess. Getting in there, saving the queen, and escaping. That was good. It had some good moments in it. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Act 1. What are your notes there?
So for the good, I cannot speak highly enough about my boy Captain Panaka or Panaka. No one gives
Captain Panaka.
No one gives him any love, and like when Force Awakens came out, there's this big thing where everyone freaked out because Finn was a stormtrooper, and they're like, "What? The second black guy in the Star Wars universe?" And I'm like, "Hold on. Captain Panaka is a beloved character in Episode 1." And like just speaking to him as a character, I absolutely love him. I love how strong he is. I love how opinionated he is. He's always ready for a fight. Like, he's acted so well, and I just get happy anytime he's on the screen. And I was so angry and disappointed when he wasn't in the second film, but I guess it makes sense.
Oh, and they switched it out, yeah.
Like, it technically makes sense because he's part of the Palace Guard, so he wouldn't be with Padme, but like, still, I really, really wanted to see more of him because he was just such a good character. And like, growing up, for some reason, I really liked him as a character. I thought he was awesome. Mm-hmm. Like, and he doesn't get enough recognition. Like, the actor doesn't get enough recognition for his performance. He showed up in an episode of Doctor Who, and I'm like, it's Captain Panaka. I'm like stoked.
Nice.
Like, and it's just, he's a character that's super overlooked in the history of Star Wars, and that it frustrates me. It frustrates me to no end because like, he was a good soldier character, and just I was always entertained. The weird for me, and this kind of goes through the entirety of this episode, is the Padme switcheroo that they do. Where it's Keira Knightley and Natalie Portman just kind of keep switching back and forth, and like, how are you on a ship with someone for that long of a time and you never notice that they're two different people? And like, there's the weird dubbing over, and there's just it's just a whole mess, and it could have been executed quite a bit better, in my opinion. But like, it's just weird. It's bizarre. Like, it makes sense to the story. I understand it, but it's super bizarre. It's super weird.
I didn't mind it. I thought it was done overly pretty well. I mean, how close can you get when you have two people who have to be the same person, right? You have to work with what you got. Like, clearly she wasn't exactly the same person, but when you got all the gowns, you got all the makeup, you have all that stuff, if you're not really thinking about it or think that would happen, you're probably just going to be accepting this is the queen.
There's two solutions to it, where you could have done hired twins. You could have hired twins.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it would have worked. And then number 2.
But I feel like, okay, just to counter that, though, you want to hire the best performer. And if the best performer doesn't have a twin who's not a good performer, now, because that person's going to be cast as Padme for the whole trilogy. Like, it wasn't just the one movie.
So then here's my other counter. Right? Here's my counter, though. So there's this lovely film called The Parent Trap, where they cast the same actor to play two different characters. That could have happened too. And like, arguably Keira Knightley does look similar to Natalie Portman, but like, they're off enough that even with the makeup, like, it's still, and again, I'm looking for it now. So it's also, it maybe doesn't work for me now as much as it did back then, but like there's just something that always seemed a bit off to me. But that's
Well, and they
that's
really
just
treated it kind of like how they did Palpatine, like they really were two different characters, right?
it's a reverse Palpatine. It's instead of one person
Yeah.
playing two characters, it's two people playing the same character.
One, yeah.
So again, it does work. It just always comes off as weird. However, for my bad, and I feel bad for going after it, but the little note that I have here is R2-D2 convenient. Like
Maybe
it's
just a bit, yeah.
it's really convenient that R2-D2 is on that ship and just happens to be the droid to survive their fleeing. Like it's really, that to me was forced storytelling. That was like, well, we need R2-D2 in this movie. Let's just have him let's just have him show up randomly, as opposed to like kind of naturally working him into the story, or like having him just, he belongs to someone else as a droid, or even like because there's a line in episode 4 where it's like R2's like, yeah, no, Obi-Wan like was my master, he owns me, like I belong to Obi-Wan, and then Obi-Wan's like, no, I never owned a droid. And like it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense why they wouldn't just have like R2 be a part of the crew from the get-go, as opposed to just having him show up.
Like more of a droid maybe by the Jedi. Like if they would have showed up with R2 kind of thing.
Or if he was
already in tow.
Padme's personal droid, or something like that, where it's just like, it didn't make, I understand the type of droid that's the thing, I can't formulate my thoughts about it. That's how frustrated I am by it every time he shows up, where it's like, man, we need to get these droids out. Oh, cool, there's a bunch of R2 units. This is great. They all died. Except for R2. Great. Okay, I guess, alright, that's the story we're telling. Okay. Like, it was too convenient for what it was, and that's more of my complaint. Like, if a few of them survived, and it wasn't just R2, that would make sense. But it's just like, he didn't do anything special. It's not like he was moving around the top, dodging bullets or anything like that. He literally was just in the one place that didn't get shot. And they're like, oh, he needs to be commended for his service. Like,
well, yeah, okay, being commended for his service was a little
but
weird.
like none of the other droids who sacrificed their lives for you are getting recognized. Because R2 didn't get shot, he gets all the attention.
And just by chance, like, it's really just by how chance he didn't get shot, right? Like, he just didn't get hit by a blaster bolt. I honestly didn't have an issue with it, because ultimately, at the end of the day, they gotta come from somewhere. They gotta come from somewhere. So whether he came with the Jedi, whether he's Padme's personal droid, whether he was on the ship and just happened to survive the attack, and they're like, damn, this droid's got some skills. Okay, you just follow us around, little buddy. Like, I was cool with that. I was like, yeah. Because ultimately, again, they gotta come from somewhere.
Yeah.
I find it very convenient that, like, majority of Star Wars characters, at least important ones, all kind of came from the same two planets. But, you know, that's a different story.
That's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah. So that's my feelings for Act 1. You ready to move to Act 2?
Yeah, let's move into Act number 2. We're going to switch it up a little bit. I think maybe we'll go back and forth on some notes here. Just so it's not all me talking, all you talking. Maybe a bit more conversational. Like I said, we'll keep adjusting things even as we go through the episode. We're just trying out things, see what works. But let's get into Act 2. This entails Tatooine and Coruscant. So why don't you take it away? You lead us into Act 2.
Well, I guess first things first, because I want to say in between them... Yeah, between them getting out of the blockade and then going to Tatooine, we get our first taste of Darth Maul.
Yep.
And I think both of us want to talk about Darth Maul, because did you want to save that for later in the conversation?
No, you can talk about Darth Maul right now, yeah.
So Darth Maul is a character I'm incredibly torn on, because I like him. As a kid, I was stoked for him. All I heard is there's going to be a guy with a double-bladed lightsaber, and I remembered how revolutionary and crazy that concept was.
That idea was, back in those days, yeah, absolutely.
And me and my friends...
the bee's knees, man.
We didn't understand the concept of that a double-bladed lightsaber would be, like, super long. We thought it was going to be about the same size as a regular lightsaber hilt, which to us as kids, we thought it was, like, maybe half a foot long, if not a bit shorter.
Like pretty short, yeah.
So like we had this, me and my friend came up with this concept where it's like, and we thought it was so cool, but again, we were 7 or 8 at the time. We thought it was the coolest thing where like this guy would like, we didn't know he was going to be a bad guy, and we thought they were going to be stormtroopers. And we were like, this guy's going to like come up between two droids or two stormtroopers, and he's going to be like, I'm going to get in here. And they're going to be like, no, you're not. And he's like, gets really cocky, and he's like, yeah, I am. And then he like punches between them, and then both the stormtroopers are like, what? Why'd he miss us? And then he'd activate his lightsaber and cut off both their heads. Yeah, that would be so cool. And like I think back to that, and I'm like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard anybody pitch ever. But for a 7-year-old, that's a pretty deep concept.
Yeah.
But like,
he's gonna punch. Ooh, you missed, buddy.
What? That's crazy. I can't even see the lightsaber in your hands. Like, I would love to see that in a Star Wars movie now. Exactly like that.
Oh,
but it would not be good. It would just be for how, like, that sounds like that's some kind of like Old Republic. That sounds like, no, that's some Empire propaganda against Jedi and stuff like that, where it's like the Jedi menace, and it's
punching between people and then activating his lightsaber.
Look, he's just murdering random stormtroopers for no reason.
That's pretty funny. Yeah. No, Darth Maul was a sick character, and he was like so key in the marketing of this movie. I think that's what got so many people hyped. Double blade lightsaber, and not the only, like, he looks badass. Like, everyone's like, that's the devil. Okay, fair enough. Sure, you could say he looks like the devil, but he also looks cool as hell. It's cool.
Oh yeah. No, and like, it's introduced a new species that we hadn't really seen before. It like,
yeah.
Ray Park did a great job. It's a shame they didn't use his actual voice, but like.
Well, yeah, I think that, Ray Park, he definitely brought the physicality to the performance, and that's really what they needed him for. Darth Maul, his purpose in the film was never to be this Shakespearean, talk a lot, have these big thematics, like
that they turned him into, like, in the Clone Wars and stuff.
In the Clone Wars, where he became something more, right? And have you got to that point yet in the Clone Wars?
No, we haven't. And like, so that's part of
when you do, I'm gonna be really excited to talk to you about it, because I do enjoy what they did with Darth Maul there. But wasn't his something role in this movie.
But that's something that's always bugged me, is when talking to people about how they felt about Star Wars, and a lot of people saying they loved Episode 1 strictly for Darth Maul. That bugs me, because like, Darth Maul isn't a good character in Episode 1, and a lot of those people will then jump back and be like, oh, but look what they did with him in Clone Wars. And it's like, you shouldn't necessarily be basing how strong a character is in one piece of media based on their strengths in a different one. That's like saying like, well, all the backstory of this character, you'd understand this backstory of this character if you read the book, but I shouldn't need to read the book. And that's where, for me,
go ahead,
I feel like, to me, he's a cool character and I love him, but I would have loved him more if I could have seen him in Episode 2 and Episode 3. If he was the overarching villain, kind of how Darth Vader was in 4, 5, and 6, if he was that overarching villain, I would have preferred that more, because we could have had him develop, and it could have been a bit of a revenge quest for Obi-Wan, and there could have been a bit more done with him as a character rather than slice in half, you dead. Like,
yeah, I think too, that was another disappointment for a lot of people, because at that point in Star Wars, all we had known is characters that survived the trilogy, and then at the end, that's when everyone starts dying, right?
Yeah.
So to have the enemy, like the guy, die right away, everyone's like, oh, okay, I guess that's something.
All right.
But I think too, for Episode 1, like, anyone who says you need to know the backstory to enjoy him, like, no, you didn't. His role in Episode 1 wasn't, again, to have a backstory, or you didn't need to know his backstory to understand. He was a physical threat. You knew he was a physical threat, and he was a tool for Palpatine. He was literally an assassin. He needed to be nothing more in that film. Like, that was his purpose, to be a tool. So he didn't really need to be anything more in the film. But I enjoyed it for what it was, and then I enjoyed the evolution of the character as they move forward in the Clone Wars. And kind of change. But I do agree with you. I would have loved to see Maul in the other ones, just strictly because he's so cool. Again, you said there's a lot of story potential there, and I agree. But even the fact that he's cool, I'm like, I would have loved to just keep seeing him, to be honest.
There was nothing that he did in this film that made me scratch my head or go like, well, that's weird. Why didn't he? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Every move he made sense. The idea
it was practical, it was efficient, and it was
the idea that he
deadly.
sent the droids out to go and hunt for them makes sense. It's a lot more inconspicuous than sending just himself. Even when he fought Qui-Gon the first time, just using the one half of the blade, that makes sense to me because he's sizing up his opponent, right? Like, trying to run down Anakin is possibly the weirdest thing, but because he doesn't know who this kid is. But at the same time,
I don't know if he necessarily tried to run down Anakin. Like, he was more focused on Qui-Gon, right?
He's driving at Anakin pretty deliberately, though.
Qui-Gon was right there. He drove at them. Anakin
didn't drop, Anakin would have been splattered everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Well, fair enough. But I don't know. I just feel like it was like, there's two people here. I'm going to throw my speeder at one. And I'm going to attack the Jedi. Like,
I'm going to throw my speeder at a 9-year-old child.
Have you seen this guy? He don't care what a 9-year-old could do. He's like, you know what? In fact, Star Wars would have worked out way better for everyone involved if he would have splattered Anakin. No, man.
I hate speeders. They're coarse, they're rough, and they run you over.
Darth Maul is just the savior of the galaxy.
Exactly, by complete accident.
Oops. That'd be a great, like, what-if story. I'd love to see that.
It'd be amazing.
But yeah. No, but that scene you're talking about, too, both Sidious and Maul are openly walking around on Coruscant. Like, that's where they are. So it kind of already sets the stage for what they're talking about episode 3 later on. Just how blind the Jedi are. Like, they can't, they have they can't, they've lost their ability to use the Force because the dark side has clouded, all things. But it already shows itself in episode 1. Like, there are Sith Lords, not just alive, but literally on your planet, arguably not that far away. And you have no idea.
Oh, it's a big planet, though.
You have no idea. Yeah, but these are Jedi, man. The whole Jedi Council
you think they'd be able to? You think
I get it if they couldn't. I get it especially because they're so powerful on the dark side, right? Like, just how powerful Sidious is. Like, they have no idea. And the fact is, they interact with Palpatine after that a lot. And they have no clue. So it just really sets the stage already how blind they have become to being able to sense their enemy. They had no idea he's right under their nose the whole time.
Exactly.
And I think it's just a scene that kind of sets that seed there as well. Like, the Jedi clearly have no idea the Sith are there. If it was just me and you, we wouldn't have any clue there's bad people in our world because we know there is, but we wouldn't specifically be able to find them down because we're not Jedi. But they should be able to sense that kind of dark power.
I mean, speak for yourself.
Yeah, okay. But to be fair, going back to Act 1, when Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon were talking, and Obi-Wan's like, I can't remember what he said specifically. It was like he's like, I don't know if he said it was disturbance, but he's like, I feel something elsewhere.
Elusive.
And I always thought he was referring to, like, he was already sensing, like, Anakin and, like, the path they were going to be on. But I was like, you know what? I think this time I watched it, I was like, no. He's getting a slight sense of Palpatine and the Sith behind the whole situation.
No, exactly. And
he's the only one who actually picked up on anything. But then
what's Qui-Gon's response to him? And that's exactly it. But that's
shut up.
It's kind of funny how much like Qui-Gon disagrees with the Jedi Council, but both they're kind of on the same page, because even the Jedi Council's like, no, it doesn't matter. We got to focus on the now. But Obi-Wan, while focusing on the now, is also focusing on, hey, I think something's going to go wrong.
Yeah, he's picking up on something deeper, yeah.
If you think about it in the overall arc of the trilogy, specifically this moment when he says that is the beginning of the downfall of the Republic, of everything. Like, this first move, this first mission is really the beginning point of that.
Yeah.
And to me, it goes to show how powerful Obi-Wan is as a Jedi if he's picking up on that early, right?
And I mean, he doesn't say oh, I feel a Sith Lord or the dark side. He just feels like there's something
wrong,
out
guys.
there, elusive, right? Like, beyond their sight. And but obviously it's nothing that concerns him enough that he's gonna fight to Qui-Gon about it, right? Like he's not gonna get an argument with his master about it, but he just makes a note that he feels it. So I just thought that was interesting. But yeah, that scene where Maul and Sidious, we get our first taste of Maul. They're right there on Coruscant, right under these guys' noses, and they can't pick him up. So again. We'll talk about this a little later too, but I just say like this movie sets up little seeds and plot points that are paid off much longer, and I think it does a really good job of that kind of storytelling. I love how you have Popcorn right now. You guys, you can't see him right now, but his setup looks incredibly comfortable. He's on like this big chair. He's got his microphone. He's got popcorn. He's having a great time.
Hungry.
Just hungry. All right, so we'll go over to. So is that's a good point for you though, eh?
Yeah.
Okay, here's a weird point. Why the hell did they take Jar Jar to Tatooine? Like when they go to Tatooine, and of all the people on their ship, why did they take Jar Jar? It makes no sense to me at all. Well, I think it's the weirdest thing. Number one, let me just say this. Number one, he is a swamp water dwelling creature. This is literally the opposite of where he's naturally supposed to be. And the fact that he didn't just dry up. Well, the fact that he didn't just dry up and die is surprising in its own. Number two, if you're trying to be inconspicuous, why are you bringing the most clumsy, dumb character along that's on the ship that you could possibly find? So, like, to me, I was like, why are we bringing Jar Jar? Why? What's your thoughts on that? That's a weird thing for me. That's under my weird points. Why are we bringing this guy?
Well, again, it's weird because he specifically mentions, too, on the way out that it's like, the sun is doing murder to his skin.
Yeah.
That's a line.
Is it doing murder to my skin? Oh, that was terrible. Never mind. Cut that off.
But like
I can't do a good Jar Jar.
The fact that he says that, and they're still like, I guess come along. But then they want it.
Yeah, screw your skin, buddy.
They're like, but here's the thing. They're like super pro taking Jar Jar. But then as soon as it's like, hey, the queen wants her handmaiden to go with you. That's an order from the queen. And they're like, no, that's weird. Why would she want us to do that?
Yeah.
Why are you taking Jar Jar?
Why wouldn't you take a handmaiden and leave Jar Jar on the ship? Like, you would be...
It honestly should have been like...
way less.
Dude, it could have been a real cool, like... It really could have been, like, a cool buddy cop thing between, like, Qui-Gon and Panaka.
Yeah, oh, man, if they both went...
That would have been fun. That would have been a good time.
Yeah.
That would have been interesting. But, like... I think they also needed to do that to set up Sebulba's strange rivalry with a child. I really think that those, if Jar Jar didn't tick off Sebulba, we couldn't be introduced to him before the pod race happened.
Fair enough.
And
I mean, I'm sure you could have done it some way, but yeah, in that specific way, yes.
But it's so. It's so bizarre, man. It's one of those things. There's a lot of choices on Tatooine that are just really weird, and it feels like they were all ramping up to. I know I already said a good thing, but like the other good thing I think we can both agree on is the pod racing.
Yeah.
Like I loved the pod racing, but like I really think like that's. I feel like there was just a meeting where it's like there was an idea for this scene. They're like, cool. How can we set up all the pieces? And then they made it work to get there from there. So a lot of it doesn't overly make sense. Jar Jar being there as, one of them.
It just is. Yeah. It's just from a practical standpoint, it makes no sense to bring Jar Jar Binks along. Jar Jar Binks.
It really, because he doesn't further the story along. He doesn't further any of the moments along. And I guess comedy too. I guess comedy, because like there's that whole thing where he's, gets his tongue caught in the...
Well, I think that's exactly... I think you hit on that exactly. That's exactly his purpose from a comedy relief point of view. But narratively, from a story point of view, it makes zero sense. But they're like, we need some comedy relief. Bring along Jar Jar. He's kind of like the 3PO of the episode, right? Like, he kind of fits that role. As we, that 3PO would normally fill, I guess, in this overall saga.
But it doesn't make sense because 3PO shows up anyway. Like,
but not he shows up as like half of nothing. You know what I mean? Like he isn't like the 3PO that we all know and love at that point. He is, but he isn't. At least he
No,
doesn't
that's
fit
fair.
that role. He doesn't fit into his 3PO role in this movie, right? He's there kind of to serve Anakin and his mom, and to show us that Anakin is a great job at building
Building
things.
things?
He can build this whole droid. How Darth Vader never noticed his own droid was walking around with everyone else was beyond me, but I don't know. Whatever. Or maybe he just assumed he would be.
Protocol droids are a dime a dozen, apparently.
And they all look the same, and but Anakin, he built one by himself at 9 years old. He's a genius.
And a pod, too. A
And a
racer.
pod, yeah, he built a lot of shit. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, that's one of my weird points. Let's switch it back to you.
I think Watto. Watto was weird. Watto was really weird. I like him as a character, but at the same time, he doesn't make a lot of sense. Because, for someone who can, resist Jedi mind tricks, he's really dumb.
yeah. Yeah, he's not really the smartest guy.
No, not at all. And it's a lot of, specifically agreeing to a bunch of bets against someone who he accused of being a Jedi, when I'm pretty sure, if you're accusing him of being a Jedi, you kind of know he is one.
Well, yeah, that was a strange part too, because he didn't say you are a Jedi. He's like, what do you think you are? Some kind of Jedi? So I think he assumed he wasn't a Jedi, but was trying to do Jedi things. But then why would he try and do Jedi things if he wasn't a Jedi? I don't know.
If Anakin can see his lightsaber, then how come no one else could?
Well, that's because Anakin was at eye level with his lightsaber while he was putting fruit in his belt. Everyone's a little higher than that.
I guess Watto was. Is that why Watto flew? Is that why they gave him wings and made him fly? So it's like.
Also, how would he get around? Have you seen those legs, man? They look useless.
I like his character, but he's just such a weird addition to the Star Wars world. Just and
I
also
don't mind him, though.
Is his whole species just resistant to Jedi mind tricks? Is that just a default setting?
It could be. I remember this isn't canon anymore, obviously, but Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, there is a Watto type character who's looking after a spaceport, and if you try and do a Jedi mind trick on him, he's like, you can F right off, buddy. Yeah, I'm resistant to that. And you're like, oh, what? So maybe it is a species thing.
I think that's what the line says. I think he's like, I'm a Toydarian.
Oh, yeah.
Mind tricks don't
work on us. Yeah, they even say it in the movie. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I didn't know that was a species thing. I didn't know, I didn't realize, that's how the Force works? Is, the Force doesn't work on certain... I want to know the science behind that, which is a weird thing to say about a Star Wars movie. But, I want to know why.
I think there are things that are Force resistant. Again, going into non-canon right now. I'm trying to remember what book it was, and I think... Was it Heir to the Empire? I can't remember what book it was. But I feel like Luke Skywalker ended up on a planet that was Force resistant or Force negative. It sucked the Force out of him. Not only could he not use it against things, he just didn't have access to it.
Because I know there's the use on...
I'd have to reread that again. I was probably 9 when I read that book too, and it was a long time ago. But
I know there's in later books there's the Yuuzhan Vong, who are completely
Force resistant. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's that too, yeah. So yeah, it really could be a species thing.
I guess that's what they set up, so I guess I can accept it. It's just, again, it's really weird that, I feel like if you couldn't trick him with a Jedi mind trick, you could probably just trick him with, regular non-magical stuff.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I don't know. Watto's one of my weird ones because I don't love him, but I don't hate him.
He's weird, yeah, that's for sure.
So do we want to talk about angels and?
Oh man, honestly that was my next point. I was my next bad point is, are you an angel?
I'm glad you asked. Thank you for asking me that.
That's okay. George Lucas writing lines is not good. He's not a great writer of dialogue, that's for sure. That has got to be one of the most painful lines in any Star Wars movie. Like, it's so bad. Are you an angel? Like, it's like, bro, what are you doing, man?
The cool thing about it though is like to me, this is where I'm torn on it, because I agree it's poorly executed, but the concept that there's some kind of concept or cosmic entities out there that are essentially angels, I'm really curious about that, and if they've ever actually expanded on that, or if it's just a whole bunch of hooey in the Star Wars universe.
Not that I know of. Yeah.
But I think it's an interesting concept, and it would be interesting to explore, but of course, no one has.
But well, exactly, because it wasn't set up as a plot point to explore. It was set up for this kid to be like, "You're hot," but like not to say that.
Look, that's a whole other. But that's a whole other weird thing about that too. Is that relationship and that romance between Padme and Anakin? It's honestly, they should have aged up Anakin more.
I would agree with that. Yeah,
didn't fly. Like it's the whole idea. You know, when they say Luke is too old to begin his training for a Jedi when he's like in his 20s, I can dig that. When they say a 9-year-old is too old to begin his training, then I'm like, okay, I think you're being really selective here.
Yeah, like that's pretty, like, you're being a little bit too strict.
This is kind of, are the Jedi a cult? Is this what it is? Are you guys just like, we will only take them if they're indoctrined at birth? Like, that's
pretty close, actually, yeah. When they're like 3 or 4 or something, I think they pick them up. Something like that. Yeah.
So, like, to me, if they would have aged him up to be about the same age as Padme, I think it would have been stronger.
Like 13, 14. And really, did he need to be 9? No. But
well, I think, and it would have been a stronger through line for their romance throughout the trilogy.
Yeah.
Right?
It would have made more sense why they had this natural connection when they met each other right away. As opposed to like a 15-year-old and a 9-year-old or whatever it was.
Where it's like, and then it's like 10 years later, they haven't seen each other, but then they get, like, I did the math, and this is an episode 2 thing, but like, I gotta address it now, because I thought about this while watching it. I did the math on that, and like, so they met each other for like maybe a couple days in episode 1. Didn't see each other for 10 years, because Anakin says, I haven't seen her in 10 years.
Yeah.
Then they spend about another 2 or 3 days together, and then they get married.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
They've spent the equivalent of a week, maybe 2 weeks together, and they're like, let's get married and have kids. And that's kind of weird. That being said,
the weirdest...
it again fits into the whole Disney princess moniker thing. Like, it totally makes sense in that light. But, like, it's a really weird relationship. Whereas, like, if they were a couple of crazy teenagers, I could kind of get that, but I don't really know many 14-year-olds. Like, when I was 14, I wasn't, like, vibing with any 9-year-olds, because that was weird.
That's exactly. This is the conversation me and my wife literally had, because she watched it with me, right? I'm like, you want to sit down? I'm watching this. She's like, yeah, sure, we'll watch it. And this is the conversation we literally had together. Because I was like, that's such a weird relationship. Like, it's super creepy. And she's like, well, it's not that many difference between us. I'm like, yeah, but we were grown-ass adults at the time. Like, this is a 100%. 9-year-old kid and a 14, 15-year-old girl. And then, okay, sure, that it's kind of creepy that she's vibing on him. And maybe it's not creepy that the boy's vibing on her, because that seems natural. But then you skip 10 years ahead. And obviously the boy's still infatuated with this beautiful woman. But the fact that she's infatuated with him still when she hasn't seen him since he was 9 is super creepy. Like, it's really creepy.
The ages would make a bit more sense if it was like she had a crush on Obi-Wan.
Exactly.
That would have made a bit more sense.
Exactly. It's the 10-year time gap that makes it.
It's still weird.
It's the 10 years time gap there that makes it really creepy, going from 1 to 2, because like she had her only image of this kid is a 9-year-old child. Like, the only image of Anakin she has from the last time she saw him would have been a 9-year-old child. You've been holding on feelings for this image of a 9-year-old child for 10 years. It's weird, man. It's a little weird.
Her only basis for liking him at that point, after 10 years of not talking to him, is that, you know, he looks handsome, and that's also really weird.
It's all the Padawan braid, man. It's the Padawan braid. Chicks dig it.
I highly doubt that. I highly doubt that is what did it.
I'm actually pretty sure. It was in a novel, I'm pretty sure.
Well, then why didn't Obi-Wan get any attention?
His was too long. She likes them short.
Is this a euphemism for something?
I don't know. It's just stupid.
But no, it's such a bizarre relationship. And again, you could have easily fixed that by aging him 5 years or something like that.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
and the story, and it wouldn't have affected the story that much, really, by just aging him even 2 or 3 years. You know what I mean? It didn't even have to be another 5. Just make him not 9.
If you look dialogue wise, it wouldn't have changed anything. It wouldn't have, like, the whole Jedi Council saying he's too old.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
It would have actually made more sense.
Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon surprised at how, strong with the Force he is, and how the Jedi never picked up on him or found him by the time that he's, in his teenagers. Like that's the thing, is there's a lot of things that I think could have been better. Actually, there's a lot of things, if you would have just merged episode 2 and 1 together in certain ways, and then episode 2 was more or less what the Clone Wars were going to be, and then episode 3 is how it is, that would have just had a better arc for all the characters, including Anakin and Padme and all that kind of stuff. We would have had a more solid arc. But that the 10-year gap, it's, to me, still is very jarring. As a kid, it was kind of cool, because it's like, oh man,
they grew up.
I'm gonna grow up with these kids. Well, because when we were Anakin's age. Yeah. And then when we saw the next one 3 years later, Anakin's older than us, and I felt like there was a disconnect there. But that's where I think, strangely enough, by the sounds of it, me and you both gravitated towards identifying with Obi-Wan out of anybody.
Yeah. Which is weird. Way more. Yeah.
But, like,
I don't know. Ewan McGregor did say, I think, maybe just because, like, him and Qui-Gon really felt like legitimate, I don't know, characters or people.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's not like the others did a bad job or anything, but it's like Ewan McGregor's performance as Obi-Wan throughout this trilogy is one of the highlights of this trilogy. For me, hands down. Hands down. If not the highlight. But
he's my fave. I can't deny that. So yeah, so that's.
But yeah, anyway, midichlorians. What'd you think about that? I have in brackets, some things don't need to be explained.
That's 100% how I feel about it. Like, I don't think, like, and the problem, as soon as you explain it, now there's several different ways to beat that.
Yeah.
Because, so, midichlorians are tiny bacteria in your bloodstream that pick up on the Force. Here's the problem with that, though. Does that mean if I get injected with antibodies as a Jedi, I can no longer use the Force?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is that what's going to happen to me? Like, there's a way to just take away the Force from people now?
Kill those little organisms.
And that's kind of, there's a big question mark there. They never addressed midichlorians after episode 1. Like, does this mean if you But like, so even going into the sequel series, does that mean Rey has a bigger midichlorian count than Anakin does?
I don't know.
Like, that's the thing, is like, so you set up something for you to explore and then never touch it again, and that's probably because of the reaction to it. I mean,
yeah,
and I get that, but like, it's such an unnecessary explanation of the Force, considering Yoda gives such a better explanation in episode 5.
Yeah,
where it's everything that surrounds us. It's the energy between me and you, that rock and that tree, like everything.
Yeah,
like, that's so much better than midichlorians. Yes.
And I get what he was like. I get what he was trying to do, because in the original trilogy, it really is this mystical force, right? And that's, I think, even with episode 1 existing, we still think of it as a mystical, like, force that connects us all, right? We don't think about it as, oh, midichlorians, little organisms, and blah 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 blah. But I think in episode 1, it was just because it had its own unique voice. I think he was just trying to explain maybe the science behind some of the decisions and choices maybe that were made and not exactly dug into, because it was a different time, right? It was a time of understanding, and with the whole Jedi Order there, why wouldn't they understand how the Force works at that kind of point, right? So, and it is still contradictory because Yoda is the Jedi Master of Masters, and he's still around, so he could have explained midichlorians if he wanted to, if it was essential. But this was really just a way, I think the Force is still essentially itself the Force, this mystical force, but the Jedi pick up on it and are able to use it because of the midichlorians. But again, some things don't need to be explained. That's something that didn't need to be explained, touched on, or even really exist. Just having it be a mystical force was intriguing enough.
To me, I think it was also used as a narrative tool in order to actually set up that Anakin is more power. And I don't think that was necessary, though. Because does Anakin, for Anakin's journey, does he need to be more powerful than all the other Jedi? Because at no point in episode 1, 2, or 3 do we actually see that power coming directly only from Anakin. Because even when he kills Mace Windu, that was an accident. He just cut off his arm. That's not really a superpower. When he fights Obi-Wan, that's two people who are trained the same going at it. He wasn't more powerful than Obi-Wan. Even when he attacks the Jedi Temple, he's surrounded by a clone army.
Yeah.
If it was just him by himself going in, great. But the only thing we see him deal with on his own are the younglings. That doesn't scream the most powerful Jedi or Sith in the world.
What do you mean? Killing a bunch of kids doesn't show extreme power? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. No.
There's a lot of talk about how Anakin is the most powerful Jedi out there, but there's not a lot of show.
Yeah, however, until he's Darth Vader.
But even then, he's not.
I guess you have nothing to compare it to, really.
Exactly. And then, in all honesty, though, if you look at what Obi-Wan does, arguably Obi-Wan is a more powerful Jedi. Even if you look at, and it's expanded stuff, we've already talked about this, there's Legends with Luke, where he's actually one of the most powerful Jedi. And there's this super cool moment, apparently, like in one of the books, where Luke gets so angry, he basically... I'm trying to remember. They have someone captured. I think it's Jason. They have him captured, and he looks out a window, and he sees, this dust storm on the horizon, and then it goes to the people who are holding him captive, and they, look through, binoculars and see further in, and this dust storm is actually just Luke force lifting a bunch of rocks, and then he just starts, firing rocks at these people on this wall and just starts killing them. And it's that's cool. I want to see that. Why couldn't we have had that? Anakin do something similar to that in one of the movies to establish how powerful he actually is. But we never do, and that's it's a lot of telling. It's a lot of talking about how powerful Anakin is and trying to set that up without actually showing it.
Showing it a lot, yeah.
And that's problematic for me.
That's for sure.
And it's just it's something as to take it back to what midichlorians are. It's such an unnecessary thing aside from setting up that Anakin is stronger than Yoda for some reason. And I don't think it's that whole Chosen One prophecy that also never comes back. They're yes, he's the Chosen One, and then they don't talk about it, and I think until episode 3 they address it again.
I can't remember if they talk about it in 2 or not, but they for sure talk about it in 3. They talk about it in 3.
They talk about it in 3 to be well, maybe we misinterpreted it, and it's guys, shouldn't we have been discussing this more closely, especially if we thought we found the Chosen One? Shouldn't we be investigating this as probably a thing other than we'll figure it out when he gets older?
Yeah, exactly.
And look what happened to them. To get for not reading.
Nothing great. Yeah, nothing great.
So this might tie in too, but for me, the other bad note that I have with this act as well, and I think it ties in with midichlorians, is the Immaculate Conception, where it's hey, who's Anakin's father? Nope, didn't have a father. Nope, he just didn't have one.
Yeah.
Okay. Does the Force do that? Is this a thing that happens on a regular basis? Or is it just for Anakin? Because that's weird.
I would assume not. Yeah, I would assume not. I would assume it's just because of this Chosen One prophecy, right? As that being one of the signs of this Chosen One is the Immaculate Conception. But if that was the case, why wouldn't everyone be like, well, goddamn, then he's the chosen one? You know what I mean? Like, why even doubt that then? If he,
As opposed to like, maybe?
yeah, exactly. Well, maybe he is. Well, dude, he came out of nowhere. Clearly, this is the one we're looking for. And it doesn't, there's no other stories anywhere of this happening all the time. Now, there is another story, and it's in the book of, what's that? I can't remember. I think it's called Darth Plagueis or whatever. But again, this is Legends. This isn't even canon anymore. But there is some hint and kind of idea that it was Darth Plagueis that created Anakin. And they even kind of slightly hint at that maybe in episode 3 as well, right? That he could convince the midichlorians to create life. And so that's kind of like this idea that was thrown around that it wasn't just the midichlorians creating him, but it was the, maybe this Sith power that they attempted to try to create something, or maybe they did a ritual. I don't know. Like, it's never really been cleared up. Like, no one's ever clearly stated this is how Anakin was created or where exactly it came from.
Was she targeted then, or did it just happen? Like, is it just some random?
You would assume it just happened, right? Because if she was targeted, well, then why wouldn't the Sith just go grab her and be like, you're coming with us now? We just created the most powerful being in the universe. You wouldn't just leave them there if you knew where. I think maybe it was just, I don't know. I'm speculating. It was a ritual, and it just happens wherever it happens, right? And in a galaxy, how are you going to know where that is? So it's kind of a stupid ritual when you think about it. But, whatever. But we don't know if that's exactly even what happened. We don't, there's no guarantee that's what happened.
Do you think it would have been better if we found out later on that maybe Anakin did have a dad who was kind of similar to him, where he's like a secret Jedi, or where he's a Jedi and he keeps his relationship a secret, and that's more of what it was, and then he died on a mission or something like that? Do you think that would have been better, or do you think it just would have been
honestly, man, I think it just doesn't. I think it didn't matter at the end of the day, and I think that's why they never dug into it more. Because it's just Anakin's here, and it's like where he came from doesn't damn it, I can't talk. Okay, just wait. Where he came from doesn't necessarily matter to the story and what they're trying to tell, other than the fact that it is a sign of the chosen one.
Well, and that's kind of the thing is, again, but it isn't a sign of the chosen one, because otherwise, as you said, they would have been like, hey, I think he is the chosen one. Like,
well, it's just. I think it is. The thing is, I think it is a sign, because that's why Qui-Gon thinks he's the chosen one, and then he sees the amount of power he has, and that kind of reaffirms his idea and thought of what's going on there. But again, yeah, then the Jedi Council don't seem to care about that as being evidence to this prophecy. So to me, that's a strange thing. And then at the end of the day, when you get to the end of the saga, fair enough, he is the chosen one, right? He ultimately ends up destroying the Sith. It just was he just took a side route to get there. It wasn't a very direct line.
I almost wonder if it just would have been better if they, as I said, if they would have just aged him up and just not addressed the father being around.
And then I don't think they needed to have a chosen one thing at all, right? Like, I don't think that was a necessary part of the story in itself, but...
Either way, I don't disagree with you. Do we want to talk about pod racing now?
Let's talk about pod racing, yeah.
Or do we want to talk about that later?
Well,
I'm good to talk about it now.
I'm good to talk about it right now. I think just in general, I think out of this movie, if you said, what are the two best things to come out of this movie? I would say Darth Maul and pod racing. Hands down. I love pod racing. One of the best additions to Star Wars. Easily... Ultimately, before when I've watched this movie, it didn't always do something for me. I was kind of like, meh, okay, let's just get past this part. Because I wanted to go to the lightsaber fights. But when I just watched it this last time, I was like, man, that was exhilarating. I just loved the moment. It was intense, it was fast, and it was something so unique that only this episode has done.
Have you seen the extended pod racing scenes too? Like the extended version of it? I love, love that. And pod racing to me... It's almost a shame that it didn't come back in some way, shape, or form other than just that quick shot in episode 2.
Yeah, but it would have been great to see.
I thought it was a really cool concept. Although, the only confusing part I have is that Anakin is the only human who can do it. That doesn't make much sense to me, considering there are pilots who are arguably better than Anakin. Although,
I think it's just kind of like a more reaction time because it's a course. I don't think it's necessarily a pilot ability. I think it more relays his ability of, being a pilot, but also having the Force, right? And such a strong connection to it. I arguably think other Jedi could do it. I think Obi-Wan could have probably jumped in there and handled it, maybe not as well because he wouldn't know what he's doing, but could have done it just because of the Force. But
yeah,
like Jedi wouldn't be going around entering pod races anyway. So the fact that he's the only human who could do it, fair enough, right? Because like a normal person who doesn't have the Force can't do it.
it's how they fund the Jedi. It's how they fund the Jedi Temple
by entering pod races.
Yep, and also, arguably one of the best things to come out of this entire pod racing thing.
Oh yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
You guys can't see it right now, but it is Star Wars Racers. Pod Racers for the N64. I loved that game.
Honestly, it is one of the
so much back in the day.
One of the best Star Wars games, and like there's also I have it on the PlayStation, the Racer's Revenge, and it's just not as good.
Yeah,
it's just not.
No, the N64 one is like
prime.
The bee's knees.
Well, it's like you can...
honestly, if they remastered that, I would buy it again.
100%. I would pay like
I would love to play that game.
I'd pay good money for that. I doubt. Hey, I doubt they're gonna listen.
Like nowadays,
I doubt they're gonna listen, but. LucasArts or whoever's in charge of making these video games, please remaster this, please.
EA games. It's probably not going to happen. But
I know, but I want them to.
It'd be sick.
Yeah, it was a Nintendo one, so they could do it for the Switch, maybe, if they still have the rights to it.
Maybe, yeah.
But no, it's just it's something. It was a cool concept. I love the diversity of the racers too, and how each kind of pod was designed to their specific like form and anatomy. I love
their style. Yeah.
They all had different personalities too. Like they were all kind of shady characters, but they were all like.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know why Gasgano got as much attention as he did, because in that race, he's not major in it. He
doesn't really do anything.
But like all the toys, Gasgano was his own like line of toys. He was always the third racer. There was Sebulba and Anakin, and then Gasgano, just because when there's arguably more interesting looking and interesting characters in that. There's one of my favorite things, and I don't know which version you can find it in, or if it's just in a deleted scene or extended version, but there's that one pod racer, like that little dinosaur guy who like freaks out before he blows up in the
Rawr!
No, not
it's in every
not
version.
the row,
not
but like the little guy, because there's the big guy who's like
Rawr! Oh, okay, I know which one.
There's a cut. There is a cut.
I love how just sound effects. You know that Rang guy?
But we know
everyone's like, we know
who we're talking about. We know they don't know, but we do. But so there's a cut though where his family comes and watches the race. They actually draw attention to the fact of, there's the missus and his children. And then he explodes. And it's like, it's not in the Blu-ray because I didn't see it in this version, and I don't know where it would be or how I can find it. You can find it, I think, online. But like, it's one of the darkest and funniest things that has ever been. like, why did you?
Here's the missus. Oh shit!
Why'd you feel like you needed to add that? Like,
so me and you could laugh at it on a podcast many years later.
Then there's good old Ben Quadraneros, who's like, has his like quad engines explode on him.
Yeah, Ord Mantell.
Yeah,
Ord Mendel
with his
Mendel and the
award-winning
pit droids, man. Oh my god! Honestly, actually, I love the pit droids too.
I do.
They're a great addition. They made me laugh.
That's why I was so happy when I saw them come back in The Mandalorian. I was just like, "Hey, pit droids, finally!"
Droids, yeah.
But to me, the pod racing scene was one of the massive strengths of Episode 1, 100%. Like,
yeah,
it's just
easy. And when you watch it, really, like, we'll talk about special effects and stuff in a bit here, but when you watch it, it really, like, holds up. Like, a lot of the special effects in this movie hold up much better even if you compare it to Star Wars Episode 2. The special effects in Episode 2 don't always hold up, but Episode 1, for the most part, it does a pretty good job. And mainly because it uses a lot of practical effects.
A lot, yeah.
Compared to digital. The most miniatures in any Star Wars movie. Episode 1.
I'm fine with this.
Yeah, it's very good.
So, anything else to add about pod racing, or are we into Act 3 now?
No, pod racing was great. Just some final notes on
Act 2?
Act 2 here. Yep, because I put like a whole bunch of them on here, whatever. Warwick Davis was by Watto during the pod race. Yep. I don't know if you saw that.
That's man, I've seen that.
I just noticed that this time. I was like, God damn, this guy's like the Where's Waldo of Star Wars. He's in so many different Star Wars things. Oh yeah, I just picked up on that this last time. Yeah, I just picked up on that. Like, I love that he's just everywhere. I like how this in this episode, I guess, Anakin actually matches up like look wise. Like when I was watching this and I was thinking of like what would Hayden Christensen's Anakin look like as a little kid, I was like, they actually match up pretty well. And that always surprised me that Hollywood is able to do that when they have like parents and children or characters who are younger and then older, but yet like some of their essential looks like still match up. I'm like, how the hell did they do that? That seems so
had a Star Wars
amazing
book.
To me.
I had a Star Wars book growing up that actually had young Anakin and teenager Anakin, because like it was essentially it was about the in-between time between episode 1 and episode 2, and they actually showed a transition of him.
Jedi Quest.
Yeah, 100%. That's it.
Yeah, there's like a series. There's only like 4 I think they ever made. They didn't make. I don't know how many books, but yeah, I read
they
those
made
too.
Quite a few. Did you read? And there was also there
was 4 for sure. Pod Racing showed up in one of them again. That was quick. And was it Jedi Apprentice with Obi-Wan?
Obi-Wan, yeah, man, and Xanatos.
Yeah, those were good books too. Yep, yeah, those were gold. I love those.
Jedi Quest. They had 11 books.
Oh, nice. I almost kind of want to go dig around and find them, because I for sure had 3 or 4. Then I didn't know if I saw any more after that.
I think I just had the first one, but then like the library was great for that. Like that's honestly what I would get from the library is all the Star Wars ones. There was also, this is pre the prequels, but like there was a couple choose your own adventure of like you were an extra character in the original trilogy and you got to choose how things played out. Yep. And then there was also
hilarious.
There was a series called Galaxy of Fear, which was like a weird kind of Goosebumps or not version of Star Wars. It was just the Star Wars books, man, that came out for kids back in the day was just they were just amazing. They were just gold, so good.
Man. They were really good. Like not even just the ones for kids, but the ones for adults. Like there was really good expanded lore. A lot of the books, I mean, a lot of the books kind of were bad too, but some of them, like, they was really good. When it was good, it was like good. When it was good, it was good.
So it's Star Wars.
Nowadays, the Star Wars books aren't that great, though. Like, yeah, I guess it's Star Wars.
When it's Star Wars. When it's good, it's good.
That sums it up. It's good.
When it's not good, it's enjoyable.
It's Star
but
Wars.
like,
it's Star Wars, but it isn't that, great. Yeah. What else I got? Okay, so then I moved on to I have some notes from Coruscant here.
Oh boy.
I know we didn't talk about like Coruscant notes very much.
It's 'cause I forget most of I honestly forget about Coruscant until the 3rd act.
Well, that's kind of like Coruscant really is where the movie kind of like grinds to a halt as far as pacing goes. There's some important things that happen, but like it's not. It is one of the, especially when you get it right after the pod race, right? It's definitely and you get Darth Maul. It's definitely a little bit of a slump in the story. But again, there's some important things that kind of happen there too. I was wondering, and I just kind of asked this as a question. Do you think Obi-Wan feels abandoned by Qui-Gon? I'm thinking specifically of when they're in the Jedi Council room and you kind of get this sense like, when when they're saying like, no, we're not going to train Anakin. Because again, I think like you mentioned earlier, the Jedi are way too attached to their code.
Yep.
And being very specific. Because it's like, he's a kid, man. Like, why can't you train him? Why can't you be accepting? And I think that was ultimately part of Anakin's downfall later on. Is he never really started off on the great foot with the Jedi in general.
Mace Windu immediately.
Yeah, like you get the squinty eye look, right? Like he's like, oh man, I hate. You're like, dude, he's gonna kill that dude one day. You know that's what he's thinking, which ultimately happens. Anyway, but when Qui-Gon's saying, like they're saying you can't have a second apprentice, and he's like, Obi-Wan's old enough to face the trials. Like he has a lot to learn, but he can learn nothing more from me. And they kind of share a look there. And I was like, man, I wonder if Obi-Wan feels a bit abandoned now, because Qui-Gon too is like a father to Obi-Wan, right? Like, and now he's getting kind of, this child is kind of taking his place, or, you know, I wonder if he feels that Qui-Gon's abandoning him for this other child in a way.
I think the best way to look at that situation and that thing, that whole thing between them, essentially it's any kid when they turn 18, right? It's the mix of, you know, you don't necessarily want to move out on your own, but you're ready to move out on your own. Yeah. And your parents don't want you to move out on your own, but they also know you need to move out on your own, right? It's the idea of that, like, I think there's a part of it that's abandonment, because it's like, well, no, like, I might not be ready for this, but, like, I think I am. And then for Qui-Gon, he's a parent figure who's just, like, so confident in his child's ability that he doesn't even hesitate to, like, he doesn't even hesitate to be like, no, yeah, he'll be fine. He'll be good.
Yeah.
And honestly,
I think some of that's brought on by the situation as well, right? Like, I think, yeah, clearly we could say Obi-Wan is ready, and he turns out fine. You know, he did a great job as far as he could at, you know, raising and teaching Anakin. And we'll get into those deeper relationships a little bit later on here, but I just felt like, yeah, maybe Obi-Wan feels a bit abandoned, because I don't think this doesn't sound like a conversation they've ever had before.
Well, it kind of gets,
you know what I mean, that right? Obi-Wan was ready for the trials, or when it's going to be that time, or there's no apparent build-up clearly in their relationship. Even again, going right back to the beginning, Qui-Gon's kind of like, be mindful of your feelings, and, you know, he's still very instructional to him, right? And not really letting him get, you know, branch out, or, you know, have his own thoughts per se, kind of thing, or pay attention to that kind of stuff. But then here is just, yeah, no, he's ready to go, and it just felt very sudden, and I think it was a shock to Obi-Wan as well, who stood by his master's side and still agreed with him, like, yeah, I am ready for the trials. But I'm like, I don't know, maybe he feels abandoned by him just because, like, it all seems very situational.
Their relationship is very interesting in this one, like, because you can see, and this is where I wish I would have seen them more. Like, I don't know why Obi-Wan stayed on board the ship and didn't go with them as well.
Yeah, the tattoo. Well, someone to guard the queen, I guess. Who's a Jedi?
Yeah, I guess, and it just, like, it seemed weird though. Still, like, you didn't get a lot of screen time with both of them together, but when you did, there was always this weird mix of, like, respect for each other, but also they've reached a point where Obi-Wan has kind of become his own person, and
yeah,
Qui-Gon's ready for him to move on. And, like, it's even moments where Obi-Wan makes the joke of, like, why do I sense we picked up another pathetic life form? Mm-hmm. And basically Qui-Gon's reaction to that just immediately shut him down, right? There wasn't any, like, oh, you know, Padawan, you're still learning and be mindful. It's just like, yeah, no, that's the boy who got us these parts, so I'm gonna go get him.
Yeah.
And basically at that moment, it's almost like that's the moment where Qui-Gon's like, yeah, I found your replacement.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, it's just what it felt like. It's just,
you're a Jedi too? Pleased to meet you.
Oh, man. And then when you think like, I love that moment specifically just because it's so beautifully is the opposite of how their relationship ended in episode 3, right? Yeah. Like, it's such like, you're a Jedi, pleased to meet you, to, I hate you, right? You're just like, oh, it almost breaks your heart. But that's, again, we'll talk about a little bit more when we get into, like, the deeper thematics of the movie and, like, the overall story arc. But, like, that's another great moment of just setting up those type of things. But other than that, like, Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship started rocky too, right? Obi-Wan's like, the boy's dangerous. Yep. The council all agrees, blah, blah, blah. Like, they were arguing right in front
Why can't you send this?
Anakin. Like, right in front of Anakin. So it's like, he obviously picks up on that. And then that's the guy who has to train you later on. Like, Anakin's obviously going to feel some, resistance towards that as well. Or, Yeah, the whole situation with Anakin is just unfortunate in this movie, but it had to be what it had to be. But anywho, yeah, that's Act Two. Any other notes that you want to add?
Well, and I just gotta give a shout out to the Jedi Council though, and how cool. Like as a kid growing up,
How cool they were.
I loved like just looking at all the different characters, and like I was looking into some of them now, and I'm kind of bummed out because um, in the new continuity, they've kind of replaced a lot of their noble deaths and stuff like that, just with like, oh, and they just disappeared during Order 66,
Yeah.
and that kind of bums me out. But I really, as a kid at that time, I was so jacked to just see a bunch of other Jedi and just the weird designs and the cool
And
designs.
so many other species, yeah.
And some of the same species, like finding out Yoda actually has a species.
Like it's not just Yoda.
It's like,
Yeah.
hey, there's Yoda, and
Yaddle,
who the
I think
heck
her
is
name
that?
was.
Yeah, it's
Yaddle?
Yaddle, and she's amazing.
Yeah.
And Yarl Poof is another one of my favorites. He's the long neck guy, just chilling in the background.
Oh yeah, chilling with the big head.
Yeah,
The classic
they
alien look.
They wrote him out of episode 2 because they were concerned he was going to confuse too many people with the Kaminoans.
Oh
So they
yeah, fair
had
enough.
him removed, and it's
Fair
like,
enough.
oh, but that's sad. He was fun. And then Robot Chicken did an excellent sketch with him, and I'll send you a link to that because it's definitely, if
Sounds
you haven't
good.
seen any of the Star Wars Robot Chicken stuff, it's
Oh, it's
some
so
of the
funny.
best Star Wars parodies. But like the Jedi Council is just such a cool concept, and honestly, I wish we could have seen more of the Jedi throughout the episodes, which is why I'm kind of excited, and why I'm digging Clone Wars right now, because I'm
Yeah.
getting that.
And,
Right, I get to
that's
see
like
them.
that is the main benefit of Clone Wars. Like that's the big pitch. You actually get to see the wars that took place. Like that's the unfortunate thing about movies. There's only so much time in a movie, right? You can't dig into every one of these cool ass looking characters. But yeah, when you have a series like Clone Wars, it's pretty good.
Instead, we got to follow around the boring-looking humans. That's what we got to do.
Yeah.
Ah, man, more white guys. Great.
Man,
Okay,
awkward.
give me some.
awkward romance scenes.
Can't we just-
Wonderful.
Can't we just, have a couple more alien main characters? Could we please? Nope, they gotta be
Yeah.
humans, guys. They gotta be humans.
Gotta be peeps. Gotta be
Okay,
peeps.
fine. I guess so.
Oh yeah.
It's a thing. It'll happen eventually in the future. We'll get. Well, again, even like once again, even looking at so I keep bringing up Mandalorian, but if you look at that crew that he puts together by the end of it, it's a diverse crew of people,
Yeah.
right? Like I liked it. So it's one of those things of like, I think in future Star Wars we're gonna start exploring some more alien races, and I think that's
Seeing that kind of stuff, yeah.
I'm excited for it, man. I'm excited for it. I'm excited for Star Wars in general. As much as I complain and have problems with certain movies and stuff, at the end of the day, it's more Star Wars, and I love how much of an impact it's made on pop culture. I love how strong of an influence it has on things, and it's makes my heart happy. Like it's one of those things I don't think I'll ever get too tired of, and I'll just be happy anytime they release something new.
Yeah, exactly, right? And maybe you'll love it, maybe you'll hate it, maybe you'll be indifferent about it. But again, at the end of the day, it's like you
Still
said,
Star
it's
Wars.
just more Star Wars. And it's awesome that we continue to get new stories. And again, maybe they'll be great, maybe they won't, but we're still going to get them. And that's up to us to decide whether we like them or not. But we still get to live in this world. It's not over. At the end of episode 3, we all thought this was the definitive end of Star Wars. Like, this is it. We got what we got. But now we get to have so much more. And for countless years to come, right? Like, there is going to be no ending to it. And right now, they're digging out new stories. And so far, they're actually doing a great job. They have this new book series coming out. that's taking place in
Oh,
the era they call the High Republic.
yeah.
Stuff, yeah. And you probably watched that little video they did, and they're like,
Yes, I did.
before we even wrote a word on a page, we sketched out the story and the world and everything in this era. I'm like, why didn't you do that for the sequels? But okay, I regress. Okay, I'll just let you be. But I'm glad they're doing that kind of stuff, right? That kind of storytelling, figuring out the universe, figuring out the purpose and what things are going to happen, and then tell your stories within those worlds. So I'm excited to see what's going to come out of that. Whether it's games, movies, or books.
As a filmmaker, it's a universe I'd love to get to play in.
Yeah.
I would absolutely love. There's a part of me that's like, I would love to write and direct my own, but I'd also love to act in one because, like, I'd love to be in Star Wars.
Just to be in Star Wars would be so cool.
But I would not want to act in one I was writing and directing.
Fair enough.
I wouldn't want, because, like, the responsibility of overseeing this whole thing, I just really feel like directing huge. That while acting in it.
Yeah,
would be, especially like in a major role, like maybe as a side character or something like that. But like, I want to get in on the action,
or like a cameo or something.
I want to fire some blasters. I want to hold a lightsaber. I want in on the action. I don't want any of this Alfred Hitchcock. I'm going to just walk on and be like, oh look, I'm in my movie and walk off. No, I want to be like in it. But like, that's one of my lofty goals is getting to make a Star Wars film. I hope so. It would be fun. I would enjoy it. Even if it's just a spin-off or a single one, I'd love it. I think it would just be a good...
legit.
It would be a good time.
Too legit to quit, baby.
Exactly.
Too legit to quit. Any other thoughts on episode or Act 2?
No, I honestly... No. I don't know. Act 2 is a weird mix of energy where, as you said, like it's super intense and then it's suddenly politics.
Yeah. Drops right off. Like, yeah.
Again, though, I don't know the weird decision about why they... decided, like, this segues into Act 3. Why did they take Anakin and Jar Jar? Like, I guess Jar Jar going back makes sense because it's his home. But, like, why'd they take Anakin with them? Not just leave him, like, with someone to watch over him on Coruscant?
I don't know. I think it was just more of a thing that was... Like, Qui-Gon's the one who picked up this kid. It's his responsibility. And I don't know how many friends they have just kicking around. Like, hey, can you watch this random child that I found?
Hey, why couldn't they leave him with Dexter Jester? Why didn't they just leave him with Obi-Wan?
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I can't wait for episode 2 because I'm going to talk about him because I love that character.
One of the best parts of that movie. He was only in it for a little bit, but one of the best parts, hands down. But yeah, no, like, to me it makes sense because Anakin came with Qui-Gon. He's his guardian now, his protector. He's not going to just leave the kid somewhere. And clearly the Jedi don't want anything to do with him at this point. So along he goes. But yeah, I thought Act 2, good pacing up until Coruscant. It falls flat there and has a really hard time pushing forward. But overall, it's still a fairly solid act. Important things happen. And I thought the Tatooine stuff was good. A little weird at times, but yeah, not a bad act. Remember, your question of the day, if you have any thoughts for a question of a day for coming up episodes, leave them down in the comment section below. And of course, let us know your thoughts on Star Wars Episode 1 today. And subscribe or follow us to always stay up to date. I think that takes care of the house cleaning.
Thanks everyone for listening to part 1 of our giant Star Wars talk about Star Wars Episode 1. Tune in on Wednesday at 9 a.m., same place, to listen to part 2 as we continue our conversation. We'll see you then.